While performing a magic show for dangerous inmates, an accident occurred inside the human transformation prop. They found a prison guard who had been brutally tortured, with 2 of his fingers missing, but he was still alive. Including this case, 3 murders had occurred in quick succession, all tightly connected. The killer was twisted beyond belief, and after each crime, he would take one item from the victim as a trophy. Years ago, a young boy named Ko Moo-chi witnessed his parents being slaughtered by the headhunter. Now grown into a detective, he appears righteous on the outside, but deep inside, he harbors an obsession with eradicating all carriers of the supermale gene and a burning desire for revenge. He once swore to personally kill Han Seo-joon, but after all these years, Han Seo-joon still sits safely behind bars, mocking Ko Moo-chi's futile efforts.
넌 사람 못 죽여. 사람을 죽이려면 눈이 비어 있어야 해. 근데 네 눈은 꽉 차 있어. 노력한다고 비워질 수 있는 게 아니야. 태어나는 거야. 그러니 애쓰지 마.
개소리 작작하고 네 모가지나 박박 닦아놓고 기다리고 있어 이 새끼야. 오래 안 걸려.
기대해보지 꼬맹이.
Han Seo-joon even recalls the first time the young Ko Moo-chi tried to stab him, clumsy and trembling, and sneered, "You're aiming at the wrong spot." Ko Moo-chi had nearly killed him, until he recently found a Bible at a crime scene. On its cover were the words "an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth." Years ago, Han Seo-joon murdered his parents, and now Ko Moo-chi planned to kill Han Seo-joon's son before his very eyes. Yet instead of feeling threatened, Han Seo-joon was struck where it hurt most. Despite his monstrous nature, he deeply valued his bloodline. Years ago, Ji-eun once visited him in prison and claimed she had personally killed his child. For the first time, the cold-blooded Han Seo-joon lost control of his emotions.
감히 내 새끼를 죽여.
But now, Ko Moo-chi claimed to have seen Han Seo-joon's son alive and well. This news ignited something dangerous inside Han Seo-joon. Even behind bars, he was determined to act.
살아있단 말이지.
Ko Moo-chi's tough demeanor moments ago was nothing but a mask. The death of his family remained an unhealed scar in his heart. As an adult, desperate to raise money for his brother's surgery, he even sought out Han Seo-joon's wife, Ji-eun. His own family had been destroyed, while the murderer's family lived comfortably. The injustice tore him apart.
덕분에 수술 9번이나 했거든요. 내일 또 수술인데 그동안 밀린 수술비 안내면 안 해준대요. 얼른 줘! 왜 우리가 이렇게 살아? 당신은 이렇게 아무 일 없는데 잘 사는데 왜? 돈 내놔! 우리 없으면 얼른 내놓으라고!
Just as Ko Moo-chi was lost in thought, he almost ran into Barium by the roadside. Barium, a patrol officer, was distracted while trying to save an injured bird. He quickly apologized to Ko Moo-chi and promised to be more careful next time. Han Seo-joon was once a neurosurgeon, and he often asked the prison guards for needles and thread to maintain the sharp sense of touch in his hands. The newly assigned guard, Chi-gak, firmly refused his request, but Han Seo-joon merely glanced at him, and that one look sent chills down Chi-gak's spine. It felt as if he were facing a beast ready to strike at any moment. All the other dangerous inmates in the prison bowed down to Han Seo-joon, and Chi-gak's defiance clearly angered them.
당신 눈치 보니까 왕이라도 된 것 같지? 착각하지 마. 그래봤자 당신 죽을 날 받아놓은 하루살이일 뿐이야.
The prison doctor handed a sewing kit to Chi-gak and quietly warned him. The last guard who made Han Seo-joon angry had no choice but to resign. Han Seo-joon might not act himself, but these inmates will find ways to do his bidding. If you want to survive here, never provoke him. The prison was preparing a performance event, and Barium was one of the performers. He was close friends with Chi-gak and Dong-gu. The performance required a sewing kit. Barium had forgotten his, so Chi-gak casually lent him his own. While chatting, Dong-gu expressed admiration for the headhunter, which deeply angered Chi-gak. Chi-gak couldn't help but admit that every time he faced him, he became so terrified that his entire body trembled. Barium followed his gaze and saw Han Seo-joon.
우리랑 똑같이 생겼네. 그럼 뭐 타노스처럼 생긴 줄 알았냐? 저 안에 괴물이 있다는 거잖아.
사람 좀 찾아.
Their eyes met, and Bariam instinctively looked away. When the performance began, the inmates watched Bariam's act with little interest. Realizing he needed to impress them, Bariam decided to perform his best trick. He randomly chose an inmate from the audience, cuffed his hands, and placed him inside the magic box, then turned the box together with Dong-gu. But when the door opened, nothing had changed. The inmates burst into laughter, thinking Bariam's trick had failed. However, when Bariam tried again, the crowd suddenly gasped in shock. Chi-guk was now inside the box, severely injured and on the brink of death. Han Seo-joon's lips curved into a faint smile as he walked onto the stage, offering to perform emergency treatment. At that moment, Pastor Ko Moo-chi saw Han Seo-joon and instantly recognized him as the headhunter who had murdered his parents years ago. Because of Han Seo-joon, he had been left permanently disabled, and the trauma from childhood made his body tremble uncontrollably. Seeing this, Bariam rushed forward and pushed Han Seo-joon away. This maniac killed more than 20 people. Who knows what he'll do if we let him near the victim? Bariam couldn't bring himself to trust Han Seo-joon. Yet Chi-guk's condition was critical. The prison doctor lacked the skills to save him, and without immediate help, Chi-guk would die. Han Seo-joon turned to leave, but Ko Moo-chi gritted his teeth and called out to him.
막히자.
No one could imagine how much courage it took for him to speak to this nightmare of a man. With Han Seo-joon's assistance, Chi-guk was rushed into surgery. 2 of his fingers had been severed. Only one was found, while the other remained missing. While waiting for news, a female patient in the hospital suddenly shouted that she wanted to end her life. At that moment, a doctor named Sun Yo-han stepped forward and said calmly, "If you want to die, it's easy."
동맥을 끊으려면 아예 팔을 잘라버리시면 됩니다. 그래야 확실하게 죽습니다.
저기 선생님, 말씀이 너무...
의사란 새끼가 말하는 꼬라지하고 동무야 말로
Dong-gu, angered by his words, was about to act out, but one cold look from Sun Yo-han made him freeze in fear. Soon after, Chi-guk's other finger was found, and immediate nerve repair surgery was needed. The lead surgeon was none other than Sun Yo-han. Bariam, disturbed by Sun Yo-han's earlier indifference toward the suicidal patient, strongly requested a different surgeon, but the other doctors explained, Sun Yo-han has successfully treated numerous patients with severe brain injuries. His skill is unmatched. He's the only one qualified to operate. The surgery went smoothly, and soon after, the police announced that they had caught the culprit who attacked Chi-guk, a convicted murderer who idolized Han Seo-joon. At that moment, the case Ko Moo-chi was in charge of made new progress. A few days earlier, a woman walking home alone had been brutally murdered. Her body was found in a sewer, and strangely, her middle finger had been forcibly bent, pointing in a specific direction, following the route the victim had taken home. Ko Moo-chi searched the nearby area and found traces of rice scattered near the drain, along with blood that hadn't been washed away. TV producer Choi Hong-ju wanted to make a special program about the serial murder case and kept pestering Ko Moo-chi for an interview. At first, he refused, but Choi Hong-ju showed him a photo of him gambling illegally in a casino, forcing him to cooperate. Helplessly, Ko Moo-chi took Choi Hong-ju back to the crime scene. To understand the killer's intention, he asked Choi Hong-ju to lie down where the victim had been found. Following the direction of the bent finger, they saw a house in the distance with a cross standing tall on its roof. Ko Moo-chi speculated that the killer was mocking the cross by using the victim's finger. The woman's middle finger had originally worn a ring, but police never found it. Choi Hong-ju believed the finger was broken accidentally when the killer removed the ring. Nothing more than coincidence. Ko Moo-chi didn't respond. Instead, he took her to another crime scene. Not long ago, the owner of a boxing gym had been found burned to death. His arms had been tied, and his fingers were also bent, pointing toward a cross outside the window. The key detail was that the gym owner never wore rings. This proved the bent fingers weren't an accident, they were deliberate. There was another similarity between the two cases. Both victims were missing something personally significant. The woman's ring was gone, and the boxing coach's gloves were taken, the killer kept trophies, a classic sign of a psychopathic mind, and such people were highly likely to carry the supermale gene.
과감하면서도 치밀한 놈이야. 무엇보다 인체 구조에 대해서 잘 알고 있어. 어디를 찔러야 당칼에 죽는지 아니면 서서히 죽는지도. 해부와 공부라도 한 놈 같단 말이야.
미스.
칼 쓰는 것도 능수능란해.
Ko Moo-chi began to suspect that the monster who once hunted humans for pleasure might still be out there, continuing his crimes. His instinct was right. The killer was driving around, searching for his next victim, and eventually fixed his gaze on a woman walking alone. Half a month earlier, he had burned a homeless man alive inside an abandoned building. If Chi-gak was still counted as alive, this was already the fourth murder. That evening, a dog suddenly broke free from its leash and ran off. When it returned, it carried a blood-stained shoe in its mouth. When Ko Moo-chi arrived, he was met with a horrifying sight: a woman's body hanging in midair. Around her neck was the boxing coach's glove. Her right hand wore the dead woman's ring, and on one foot was the homeless man's shoe.
근데 시계 누구 거지?
Strangely, there was no cross or church nearby, and there were no drag marks on the ground. But something even more disturbing appeared: the victim's middle finger was jammed deep into her own throat. Ko Moo-chi pulled the finger out and saw a cross carved into the roof of her mouth. Above it was a message that read, "A tribute to Detective Ko Moo-chi's powers of deduction. I hope you enjoy my gift." Meanwhile, an unknown man approached Sun Yo-han and told him, "Someone wants to see you." When he arrived at the prison, the person waiting was none other than Han Seo-joon.
저를 보고 싶어 하셨다고요? 궁금했다. 내 아들이 어떻게 자랐는지.
So, was Han Seo-joon's son actually Sun Yo-han or someone else entirely? Years ago, a boy with the supermale gene had learned from his mother that there was another child like him, another born with the same monstrous bloodline. He had always wondered what that boy grew up to be. Did he become a killer like himself, or one of the rare 1% who turned their gift into genius? The truth of this story grows darker and more mysterious. I'm your host who dives deep into Korean thrillers. See you in the next episode.